Have you ever felt like a ghost at your own party? I don't mean being ignored. I mean being there, smiling, laughing, part of the conversation, but the real you is a million miles away, screaming. For years, I was the master of the performance. I wore the right clothes, liked the right bands, and laughed at jokes I didn't find funny. I was surrounded by people who called me their friend, but not a single one of them knew who I actually was. And the loneliest I have ever felt was in a crowded room, pretending to be one of them.
That profound sense of invisible isolation is a story so many of us know in our bones. Today on Unbroken Women, we're joined by Chloe Parker from Vermont, a woman who chose the terrifying path of true solitude over the suffocating comfort of fitting in. Her journey is a powerful testament to the courage it takes to reclaim yourself. I'm your host, Susan Bentley, and this is Chloe's story, the girl who refused to shrink.
Growing up in our little corner of Vermont, there was a certain blueprint, a way to be. It was unspoken, but as solid as the maple trees lining Main Street. You went to the right coffee shop, wore the right brand of flannel, and you dated someone from the high school football team or one of his approved friends. My social circle was the epicenter of this blueprint. We were a tight-knit group, or so it seemed. Our lives were a constant loop of shared lattes, bonfires on the weekends, and dissecting the same local gossip. On the surface, it was idyllic, comfortable, safe. I played my part so well. I learned to love pumpkin spice, to nod along when they talked about settling down in the next town over, to keep my opinions on art or politics or anything remotely edgy to myself. I had this whole other person living inside me, a girl who wanted to paint murals on brick walls, who wrote strange dark poetry in a locked journal, who dreamed of cities that smelled like rain and asphalt instead of pine needles. But that girl, she wasn't part of the blueprint, so I kept her hidden. I convinced myself that this comfortable, predictable life was what I wanted. It was easier than admitting the truth that I was an actress in a play I never auditioned for, and I was starting to forget my real lines. The weight of it was constant. It wasn't a heavy, sudden burden. It was more like wearing a coat that was 2 sizes too small all day, every day. Every morning, getting dressed was a calculation. Was this too weird? Was the color too loud? I'd stand in front of my closet, my hand hovering over something I loved, and I'd choose the safer, blander option instead. Every conversation was a minefield. I'd have a thought, a real, authentic opinion, and I'd feel it rise up in my throat, only to swallow it back down. It was exhausting, this constant self-editing. It felt like my own mind was a surveillance state, with tiny sensors deleting anything that deviated from the group's norm. The anxiety was a low hum beneath everything, a fear of being discovered as a fraud. I was terrified that one day the mask would slip and they'd all see the person underneath, the girl with the blue hair and the weird ideas, and they wouldn't just dislike her, they would be repulsed by her. I was shrinking myself to fit, and I could feel my spirit getting smaller every day. The first crack was small. I was at the town library, a place I secretly loved, and I found a book of photography by an artist whose work was raw and strange and beautiful. It was full of gritty cityscapes and portraits of people with incredible, unconventional faces. I checked it out, hiding it in my bag like it was contraband. That night, I sat on my bedroom floor, turning the pages, and I felt this ache, a profound longing for a world I didn't know, for people who saw beauty in the imperfect and the strange.
A few days later, sitting at the coffee shop with my friends, they were all talking about a new romantic comedy, gushing about the predictable plot, and for a fleeting moment, I imagined telling them about the photography book. I pictured their confused stares, the polite but dismissive little smiles. And in that moment, the whisper started. "This isn't you," it said. "These aren't your people." It was so quiet, I could almost ignore it, but it was there. A tiny seed of dissent planted in the carefully curated garden of my life. It was the first time I consciously acknowledged the gap between who I was and who I was pretending to be. The whisper grew louder, but the final shattering came on a Saturday night. We were all at a party at someone's house. The usual scene. Same music, same people, same conversations. I was feeling a little braver than usual. Maybe it was the 2 beers, maybe it was just exhaustion. Someone brought up college plans, and everyone was talking about the state university, about programs in business or education. It was the blueprint, laid out plain. Then someone turned to me and asked what I was thinking of studying. The mask slipped. For one stupid, reckless moment, I was honest. "I've been thinking about applying to art school in the city," I said. "Maybe for something like graphic design or illustration." The music didn't stop, but it felt like it did. A circle of silence fell around me. My closest friend, Sarah, let out a little laugh. It wasn't a kind laugh. It was sharp and condescending. "Art school?" she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Chloe, what would you even do with that? You'd be a starving artist in some dirty apartment." Another guy chimed in. "Yeah, stick to what you know. Don't get all weird on us." Their words were like stones, but it was their faces that broke me. The share of glances, the smirks, the look of pity mixed with disdain. They weren't just disagreeing with the choice. They were mocking the very essence of who I was. In that one moment, I wasn't one of them anymore. I was an oddity, a joke. I felt my face burn with a humiliation so hot it felt like it could peel my skin off. I mumbled something about needing air and walked out, leaving my jacket, my bag, my entire performance behind me. The walk home was a blur of shame and panic. My first instinct was damage control. I typed out a text in the group chat. "Hey guys, sorry I left so suddenly, just wasn't feeling well, and LOL about the art school thing, just a silly idea." I hit send, my thumb trembling. I tried to rationalize it. They were just joking. I was being too sensitive. This is what friends do. They tease each other. But the knot in my stomach told me a different story. The fear was immense, a physical thing that made it hard to breathe. The idea of not having them, of being truly alone in this small town, was terrifying. Who would I sit with at the coffee shop? Who would I go to the movies with on a Friday night? My entire social life, my entire sense of belonging was tied to this group of people who had just publicly ridiculed my deepest dream. For the next few days, I was paralyzed. I replayed the scene over and over in my head, cringing every time. I checked my phone obsessively, waiting for someone to text something normal, something that would erase the whole incident. But the replies in the group chat were lukewarm, distant. I knew, deep down, that a line had been crossed. But the alternative, stepping away, choosing myself, felt like stepping off a cliff into a black, empty void. And I was so scared of falling. The breaking point came a week later. After days of awkward silence and ignored texts, I put on a pastel sweater I hated and drove to our usual coffee shop,
determined to smooth things over, to apologize for being weird. I saw them through the window, all clustered at our usual table, laughing. I took a deep breath and started to walk in, but then I stopped. I couldn't do it. I couldn't put the mask back on. I just drove home. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, staring at my reflection. I saw the girl in the bland sweater, her face pale with anxiety. But for the first time, I also saw the girl underneath. I saw the flicker in her hazel eyes, the defiance in the set of her jaw. And I realized I had been betraying her, suffocating her for years, all for the approval of people who would never understand her anyway. The realization wasn't a thought. It was a physical collapse. A sob ripped through me, raw and agonizing. It was for the poems I never shared, the paintings I never started, the opinions I swallowed. I slid down the wall onto the cold tile floor and just wept. It was the sound of a dam breaking. It was the sound of a lifetime of pretending finally ending. And in that moment of complete, utter brokenness, something new was born. When the tears finally stopped, I was empty, but it was a clean kind of empty, a blank slate. I sat there on the floor for what felt like hours, the exhaustion replaced by a strange, quiet calm. The fear was still there, buzzing in the background, but it was no longer in control. There was a new feeling taking its place. Resolve. I knew what I had to do. It was the most terrifying decision of my life, but it was also the simplest. I wasn't going to fight for their acceptance anymore. I wasn't going to shrink myself for their comfort. I was going to choose me. I picked up my phone, my hands steady now. I opened our group chat, the one filled with years of inside jokes and shared plans. I read the name of the group one last time, and then I selected leave conversation. I went through my contacts and blocked a few key numbers. Each tap of the screen felt like a gunshot and a prayer. It was an act of social suicide in our small town, and I knew it. But it was also an act of profound self-preservation. The first Friday night was the hardest. My body was wired for the routine. Meet at Sarah's at 7, then go to the diner or movie. The silence in my house was deafening. Every cell in my body screamed at me to call someone, to take it all back, to beg for forgiveness. The loneliness felt like a physical presence in the room, a cold, heavy weight on my chest. I almost gave in a dozen times. Instead, I grabbed my locked journal and a pen, and I walked to the deserted town park. I sat on a cold bench under a single lamppost, and for the first time, I wrote without fear. I wrote about the party, about the mirror, about the suffocating weight of being someone else. The words poured out of me, messy and raw and true. It wasn't a solution. It didn't magically give me new friends or a new life. But as I sat there, the only sounds being the crickets and the scratch of my pen on paper, I felt a tiny, unfamiliar spark. It was freedom. It was terrifying. And it was exhilarating. And it was mine. The pushback was swift and brutal. My sudden disappearance from the scene didn't go unnoticed. At first, it was cold shoulders. Seeing them in the grocery store and having them look right through me as if I didn't exist. It stung, but it was manageable. Then came the whispers. I'd be in the library and hear my name murmured 2 aisles over, followed by stifled laughter. Rumors started to spread that I'd had some kind of breakdown, that I was unstable or arrogant or just plain weird. Social media became a minefield. Vague, passive-aggressive posts would appear. Things like, "So glad to have real friends you can count on," posted with a picture of them all at our old spot. It was designed to isolate me, to punish me for leaving the fold. And it worked. I felt like I had a scarlet letter pinned to my chest. Every time I left my house, I felt the weight of the town's judgment. Part of me, the part that was still wired for their approval, was screaming. It told me I was a fool, that I had thrown away everything for nothing. It told me to go back, to apologize, to do whatever it took to be let back in. Resisting that voice and their very public shunning took every ounce of strength I had. The loneliness was a different beast entirely. It wasn't just about not having plans on a weekend. It was a deep, soul-crushing ache. I would wake up in the morning and the first thought that hit me was, I am completely alone. I missed the easy laughter, even if it wasn't always genuine. I missed the comfort of shared history, the shorthand of inside jokes. My mind became a battleground. One moment I'd feel a surge of pride for my decision, and the next I'd be drowning in doubt. Did I make a catastrophic mistake? Is being authentic worth this much pain? Maybe I should have just learned to live with it. Maybe I was the one who was wrong. I'd scroll through old photos of us, a masochistic ritual, and wonder if I had destroyed the only real connections I would ever have. This inner war was exhausting, a constant drain on my spirit, leaving me feeling fragile and utterly lost. My 21st birthday was the lowest point. It was the day I came closest to giving up. I had imagined the quiet celebration, maybe dinner with my parents. But scrolling through Instagram, I saw a story. It was a huge surprise party for one of the girls in my old group, whose birthday was the day after mine. The video showed everyone there, laughing, dancing, celebrating. All the people who were supposed to be my friends. The sight of it just broke me. The loneliness I'd been fighting became a tidal wave that slammed me into the ground. I felt pathetic, forgotten, invisible. That night, I sat in my car, my phone in my hand, my thumb hovering over Sarah's number. I was ready to do it, to call her, crying, and beg her to take me back. I was ready to promise to be normal, to dye my hair brown, to forget about art school, to do anything to make the pain stop. I was utterly exhausted from the fight. Surrender seemed like the only option left. I had nothing left. I didn't make the call. Instead, I drove to a little cafe on the outskirts of town, one I've never been to before, just to be around the ambient noise of other people. I was sketching in my notebook, not really drawing anything, just making lines to keep my hand from dialing that number. An older woman with a shock of wild silver hair and paint splattered on her jacket stopped by my table. "Excuse me," she said, her voice raspy and warm. "I don't mean to interrupt, but I love the movement in your lines." I was so startled I couldn't speak. She pointed at a swirl I'd drawn in a moment of frustration. "There's so much feeling in that," she said. "You have a voice. Don't let anyone quiet it." She smiled, a genuine, crinkly-eyed smile, and then she walked away. It was a 30-second interaction, but she didn't see a weird, lonely girl. She saw an artist. She saw my voice. It was the spark I needed in the absolute darkness. A stranger had seen the real me, and she hadn't laughed. That small moment was a turning point. I started seeking out places where my real self might be welcome. I found out the woman from the cafe, Eleanor, was a local artist, and I got up the courage to visit her studio during an open house. It was filled with strange, wonderful, vibrant art. I felt more at home there than I had in years.
She told me about a monthly poetry slam in the next town over and a figure drawing class at the community center. I started going. It was terrifying at first. I was awkward and quiet, but slowly I started to talk to people. People who loved weird books, who had tattoos and strange hobbies, who talked about ideas instead of other people. I started building a new life, one tiny, authentic piece at a time. I submitted a painting to a local art show. I wore the clothes I loved. I dyed my hair an even brighter shade of blue. Each step was a small rebellion, a reaffirmation of the decision I made on my bathroom floor. It wasn't a fast or easy climb, but for the first time, I was climbing towards something real. There came a day when I was walking down Main Street and saw my old friends coming towards me. The old me would have crossed the street, heart pounding, but the new me just kept walking. I met their eyes, gave them a small, neutral nod, and passed by. And I felt nothing. No fear, no anger, no longing, just peace. Their opinions had no power over me anymore. My sense of self-worth wasn't tied to their approval. It was coming from inside me, from the art I was creating, the genuine connections I was forming, the simple, profound joy of living a life that was finally my own. I had become the girl I used to hide, and I wasn't just surviving, I was flourishing. If I could speak to that girl, the one crying on the bathroom floor, the one who thought her world was ending, I would thank her. I'd tell her that her breakdown was actually a breakthrough. I'd tell her that all the pain and loneliness was just the price of admission to her own life. The mold they tried to fit you into was never meant for your spirit. Your true strength, your real beauty, lies in being gloriously, unapologetically, and completely you. You didn't lose them. You found yourself. And she is worth everything.
Thank you, Chloe, for sharing that incredibly brave and beautiful journey of self-emancipation. Her story reminds us that true belonging starts with belonging to ourselves. If Chloe's story resonated with you, please share your own experiences in the comments below. Your story matters. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Unbroken Women for more stories of resilience. And click here to watch another incredible testimony from one of our sisters.